Hello, today I will be reviewing the Ozunon 28mm f2.8 manual focus lens. Ozunon lenses were created by the Ozone Optical Company Limited, a Japanese company whose founder was named Kazuo Ozone. They're best known for the Ozunon lenses and their other brand GMC, but they were also creators of lenses for exports to third-party companies like Vivitar, Solgar, Hanimex, and Magnicon. Hope I pronounced that right. Onto the physical specifications of this lens. It uses an MD mount, for which, as all of these lenses, you can buy an adapter off Amazon for about $15 to adapt it to just about any camera body out there that you have now. So you can use these on your mirrorless cameras, your DSLRs, whatever. Just buy the right adapter. This is a 28mm lens, which is a good focal length for landscape photography. You can get a large area in the shot at once. It's like a wide-angle lens. The minimum focusing distance on this lens, though, is 0.36 meters, which is about 14 inches. So you can do some pretty up-close stuff with it as well. The aperture has 6 blades and goes from f2.8 to f22 in half-stop increments, except for the f16 to f22, which is 1 click. The focus ring on this lens is nice and smooth and goes about 3/4 of a turn, which is good. On a manual focus lens, the longer the throw is, the better, the easier you can finely tune your focus. There are threads on the front for a 58mm filter, although when I was researching this on eBay, trying to find prices, I saw versions of this lens that were also an Ozunon 28mm f2.8 lens that had a 52mm filter. So there's 2 lenses that are similar here. I have the one that has a 58mm filter. Other physical characteristics of just this copy of this lens is this nice little scratch on the lens right there. It looks like maybe somebody dropped it on concrete or something and I just got a fingerprint on it. Don't do this. It's already scratched, I don't care. Another physical characteristic of this particular copy of this lens is that there appears to be some kind of a haze around the outside, which I don't know if that's fungus on the inside or if maybe the coating has gotten rubbed off. Just based on the fact that there is a scratch on the front, that's a possibility. Could be something on the inside. It may have affected my test shots in a way that originally I thought was just vignetting of the lens. It may actually be this. We'll see that in a minute. Now on to the test charts. At f2.8, if we go to the center, you can see it's very sharp for f2.8 and there is no chromatic aberration. If you go to the corners though, it's really bad. It's hard to tell if there's any chromatic aberration because it's just so blurry. But at f8, if we go to the center is again very sharp and no chromatic aberration. If we go to f8 at the corners, it's a bit better than f2.8, but it's still pretty blurry. I don't usually show other than f2.8 and f8 because I show the largest aperture you can get and f8 because f8 is usually the sweet spot on most of these lenses. But on this one, I'm also going to show you f22. At f22, in the middle, we can see this big smudge, which I'll highlight here, which is the scratch on the lens. And also dots, which indicates that I need to clean my sensor. When I took all of these test shots, I was doing about 10 to 12 lenses on the same day and just kept swapping lenses, and it probably needed to be cleaned. f22 at the corners, though, we start to see some sharpness, but you got to dial it up to f22 to get any sharpness. Now, if we look at the distortion chart, there is a bit of barrel distortion along the edges, but not much. And again, we see that the sides and the corners are out of focus. Moving on to some test images. I took these at the same cemetery that I took the images for the lens last week. Here's the fish on a bicycle again, and at f2.8 it's pretty sharp. But notice the vignetting or shadows in the corners. That could be the lens itself just not covering the full sensor. It could be that maybe this lens would work better with an APS-C sensor, or it could be that haze that I mentioned earlier that's just on the lens itself and may only be affecting this particular copy of this lens. I really can't tell. At f8, the vignetting is almost gone and the sky is more even. Here's some geese on a pond, and you can see that scratch again, even at f8. And if you look at these hands at f2.8, this is a bit overexposed, but the rose in the center is pretty sharp. And note the vignetting again. It's more noticeable in the upper left this time. Here they are at f8. So in conclusion, ignoring the scratch on the front, 28mm is a good focal length for landscapes. The vignetting and out of focus edges on the corners could be good or bad depending on what you're using it for. For some artistic purposes, you might want your central subject to be nice and focused and your background to be out of focus, and this lens would be great for that. The problem is I'm not sure if the vignetting is actually all lenses of this particular brand and this model, or just this one. But if you wanted that, you can always do it in Lightroom anyway. And the center is still pretty sharp, except for the scratches on it, which is just this particular copy of this lens. I found one of these on eBay for about 40 bucks. There was another version that I mentioned with the 52mm filter that is a smaller lens, and I don't have one of those to review, but that one was only 25 bucks. So that's the Ozunon 28mm f2.8 manual focus lens. If you like this video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe if you haven't already subscribed, and ring the little bell icon if you'd like to be notified of future videos. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video. And I'm going to re-record the beginning of this. The physical characteristics, anyway, after I adjust this camera.